Recording in progress.
Imate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paschachari Shatarini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvasesha Sunyavani Paschachari Satarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Bolo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Bolo, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Janabalaba Girivardhari, Jaya Gopi Janabalaba Girivardhari, Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana, Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana, Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana, Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Gopi Jana Balapa Girivardhari, Gopi Jana Balapa Girivardhari, Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana, Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana, Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana, Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Bolo, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Radha, Damodara Radha, Damodara Radha, Radha, Damodara Radha, Damodara Radha, Jaya Radha, Damodara Radha, Damodara Radha, Jaya Radha, Damodara Radha, Damodara Radha, Jaya Radha, Damodara Radha, Damodara Radha. Go Premanande, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Sri Gauranitai ki jai, Sri Sri Krishna Balaram ki jai, Sri Sri Radha Govinda Madhava ki, Sri Sri Radha Damodar ki, Harinama Sankirtan ki, Brihat Madanga ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Jai. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyas Cha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, all dear devotees from all over the world, wherever you are, in New Zealand, Fiji, Australia, Malaysia, Philippines, India, and in Europe, of course, in where I don't see everyone, I don't know who's online, but maybe in England or in Germany or in France or Hungary or Slovakia, Czech, different countries, Russia maybe. Welcome all of you this morning. And here we are in the middle of Kartik Vrata, the wonderful month of Kartik, Damodara Mass. And yes, 2 days ago we had gorgeous Govardhan Puja. I hope wherever you were able to honor Govardhan Puja. And tomorrow, at least here in France, maybe it's different in your country, but tomorrow here in France is the Tirobhav Disappearance Festival, is Divine Grace Shlesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So, and today, what to say, it's another wonderful day. We had Diwali a few days ago also. Yesterday, we were on Harinam Sankirtan in tours, and many books were being distributed. In Paris, another group was out distributing many books, and in another city, Montpellier, another group was distributing many books. In another city, another group of Nancy were also distributing many books. So, a wonderful thing to do during the month of Kartik, to perform Sankirtan Yajna. This is the movement's purpose, to execute Sankirtan Yajna in every town and village of the world. Day after day, Prabhupada said, this yajna should go on. One finishes, another one starts. 24 hours of the day, all over this planet, Sankirtan Yajna is going on. And also, at probably 24 hours a day, all day long, all over the world, somewhere in the world, Damodara Astakam is being sung. Lamps are being offered to Lord Damodar, and devotees are singing Damodara Astakam, and other services are going on. Deities are being worshipped, prasadam is being distributed all the time, round the clock. This earth is for Lord Chaitanya, purpose for his coming to weave a garland or of the holy name and Krishna praying, or a wreath. The very word wreath is usually used in reference to, you could say, to cemetery or something where you put a wreath on a tomb, but it just literally means a wreath, a round circle of something or other, flowers in this case, a wreath of the holy name. It's like we have a beautiful, sometimes red and white flowers are combined to make a beautiful, colorful design. Thank you. And a wreath of Krishna praying and the holy name, with which Lord Chaitanya garlanded the entire material world. So the Sankirtan movement is like that, wreath all around the world. Krishna service, devotional service is going on, Sankirtan Yajna is going on, books are going out, holy name is being chanted, etc., etc. So this is, you could say, we're just doing a little drop in the great ocean, but this is the principle, to cover the world with Sankirtan Yajna, so that everyone, no matter who they are, somehow or another gets the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So this month of Damodar, Kartik month, is a very auspicious month for everyone, Vaishnava, for those who observe it, most auspicious month. So we'll continue where we left off last week. I can't remember where we left off, but anyway, something like where we left off last week, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So just give me a second here, just to get my reference to the verse. Hare Krishna. And we're reading, I've opened it maybe on the exact page. I just opened the book just like that. Canto 10, chapter 9, and text 5 is here. Madhya Soda binds Lord Krishna. Yeah. I think we may have read that one. That's 6. Well, we go back to text 5. Yeah, so we read 5 last week, because last week we heard about the milk pots overflowing on the stove, if you remember, and how Mother Yasoda went to attend to the milk pots. Meanwhile, Krishna wasn't very inspired. He was very inspired, but from the external point of view, we could say he was a little upset. Internally, he's very happy. An interesting feature we heard yesterday. Another feature of the fact that Mother Yasoda went to attend to the pots is another important lesson in devotional service. Because you could say, what is this? She is giving her breast milk to Krishna, and she leaves Krishna and goes to attend the milk pots. We heard last week how that milk was only for the pleasure of Krishna. It had no other purpose of existence. And the only purpose of Mother Yasoda boiling the milk was simply to make delectable dishes for Krishna's pleasure. There's another angle which is related, is that the tradiya means in relationship with the devotees, the items of service used in the service of Krishna, and so on. For tradiya are considered by the devotees in many ways as more important than being with Krishna, or Krishna in a sense. They are non-different, but because they bring pleasure to Krishna. In the case of Mother Yasoda, you could say, of course, she's bringing pleasure to Krishna. But the lesson for most of us is that we are not Mother Yasoda. We cannot imitate Mother Yasoda. And Prabhupada said that is Mayavad philosophy. We think we can become Mother Yasoda. We can develop this mood. For instance, we read in the Nectar of Devotion, Hari Bhakti Vilas, different scriptures, describing that the service of the Vaishnavas is greater than the service of Krishna himself. The same thing applies. Lord Shiva, but where Lord Shiva says, of all kinds of services, the service of the Lord is the highest. Even higher than that is the service of the devotees. So attending to devotees, even if we're engaging in direct service, is higher principle. We have to use a little common sense, but it's the highest principle because that brings the most pleasure to Krishna when we serve his devotees. So Mother Yasoda was serving, in this case, we could say, well, what devotee was she serving? She was serving we heard last week, the milk. It's hard to imagine the milk devotee. Back to milk, bhakti milk, whatever it is. But Krishna's serving the Vaishnava, serving the principle of serving Krishna as a higher principle, Tadiya. So that was that. So, but Krishna, for another reason, to unwind. Now, the reasons are to show how much love Mother Yasoda has, and to relish variety of ras, or relationship in Vatsalya Bhav with Mother Yasoda and the other gopis, which has been an ongoing theme of the last few chapters of the Bhagavatam. Krishna stealing milk and so on and so forth, stealing milk products from the gopis' houses, and so on, like that. But here we see Krishna appears to be very angry, and now we'll read text number 6. Being very angry, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Altogether, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Being very angry and biting his reddish lips with his teeth, Krishna, with false tears in his eyes, broke the container of yogurt with a piece of stone. Then he entered a room and began to eat the freshly churned butter in a solitary place. Maybe we read this last week, I don't know, but this is a typical response from a young boy whose pleasure has been, say, thwarted or interfered with by another person, that they become very upset. And they throw what we say in English, a tantrum. They kick their leg, well, it depends what age they are. And they may break a window or punch the wall or smash something or scream or whatever it is, depends on their age. But they'll somehow or other, they're generally, they cannot see, generally speaking, at that age, one is very centered on one's own enjoyment, that the intelligence doesn't see a bigger picture. Of course, in Krishna's case, that isn't the situation, but it's a pastime. It's behaving like a human child, but it's a pastime which is a most enjoyable pastime for one and all. And otherwise, we would not be able to think about this Damodara pastime if Krishna had not become angry. There would be no Damodara Astakam, there would be no, Damodara Vrata. There would be nothing. We wouldn't have never heard of it. The pastime simply would not have been on the menu. It would not have been, no one would know about it. It wouldn't have existed, at least not in our manifested experience. So Krishna manifested this pastime, relishing. There's a direct relationship with the Lord and indirect. So everything comes from Krishna. So Krishna also is the source of all the varieties of tastes in relationship. So anger is also there sometimes in relationship, even in loving exchanges, out of jealousy or out of whatever, frustration. Sometimes anger comes in. It's not an anger against someone. It's an anger which manifests because of one's own, something been interfered with. So Krishna is the origin of that also. He's the origin of everything. So otherwise anger would not exist in this world. And sometimes when you're angry, kind of like bite your lips. It kind of builds up and then bang. He bit his lips. It is natural when a child becomes angry, he can begin crying with false tears in his eyes. So Krishna did this, and biting his reddish lips with his teeth, he broke the pot with a stone. The intelligence is not working. He forgets that yogurt in the pot is meant for his pleasure, but out of anger, he smashes it. Then he entered a room and he began to eat the freshly churned butter in a solitary place. Now, another angle of these wonderful pastimes, and we can also compare this with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit, was in Navadvip in the house of Mother Sachi, he would also sometimes, if he didn't get what he wanted, he would throw a tantrum and he would smash everything in the house. All the pots and pans and all the furniture, if there was any, was smashed. He just break everything he could. And Mother Yasoda was helpless. Mother Sachi, rather, in this case, was helpless. What to do? He was just, The only thing he didn't smash was Mother Sachi. He beat the doors, everything, the walls, the floor. He pounded everything. It was so helpless. And then he would go out into the courtyard and just scream and bang the floor, and then eventually he just kind of calmed down. And Mother Sachi would then see, magically speaking, everything returned to normal. So what is this same thing in this pastime? The same principle is there. When Krishna smashes the pot of yogurt or breaks the pots to get whatever it is, he's smashing anarthas in our heart, breaking the anarthas. We have these anarthas in pots in our heart. We don't want to reveal them. We have all kinds of different, they may come externally in different ways as, anger or frustration or whatever. But internally, there is something in our heart holding on independently into our heart, not letting go. And by hearing these pastimes submissively, entering into these pastimes with all much as we can anyway. This helps to break these tight knots which we have in our heart, these attachments to whatever. You can't say this or that. It depends. Everyone's individual. There's all some kind of independent attachment inside of a very sealed pot within our hearts, maybe many. And there's one of the effects of hearing Krishna's pastime is to smash these various misconceptions which we have, or attachments which we have, offensive mentalities which we have, whatever it is, are smashed. So like that, Krishna is enacting his pastime very well, but also to smash our attachments. Maybe in this case, you could say being very self-centered and thinking everything is meant for my pleasure, should be around whatever condition I'm in. The way I see it is the way it should be. There's one aspect. So anyway, there we go. So he's entered the room and he begins to eat the freshly churned butter in a solitary place. Mother Yasoda. So this is a summary, of course, of the pastime. Next verse, text 7. Mother Yasoda, after taking down the hot milk from the oven, returned to the churning spot. Can you imagine? When she saw that the container of yogurt was broken and that Krishna was not present, she concluded that the breaking of the pot was the work of Krishna. Therefore, seeing the pot broken and Krishna not present, Yasoda definitely considered that the breaking of the pot was the work of Krishna. There was no doubt about it, and it was not very difficult to conclude. If any of you have had kids, or even a dog sometimes, you ever experience, we used to experience that with our dog, you make a mistake or something, you leave the fridge open, and the dog is around, and then you come back, and there's a mess everywhere, but the dog's not there. You kind of conclude that the dog has gotten his nose into the fridge and just caused havoc in there. So what to speak of a child? And the intelligence is not there. They don't consider the consequences. After a while, they may learn, but initially they don't. They just see an object, either an object of my pleasure or my pleasure has been, interfered with. And they just see themselves in the center like that. And we're going to the next verse, text number 8. Krishna at that time was sitting on an upside down wooden mortar for grinding spices and was distributing milk preparations such as yogurt and butter to the monkeys as he liked. Because of having stolen, he was looking all around with great anxiety. There's this kind of fear that, there's going to, maybe I'll be caught or something's wrong here. But, it's another kind of fun. It's very kind of we say, thievery. Is adrenaline. It's kind of high experience, I guess, that you get from stealing, and the excitement of what will happen now, trying to avoid being caught. It's not something that necessarily is recommended by any means, but it is an experience, especially youngsters. They may get that experience of some kind of excitement from this activity of apparent stealing. Of course, in the case of Krishna, there's no real question of stealing because everything belongs to Krishna. But nonetheless, in the pastime, we see this pastime of Krishna stealing milk products and feeding monkeys. Well, in one sense, that's what's going on in the world, isn't it? That everyone is stealing Krishna's property and feeding it to monkeys in the form of human beings, trying to enjoy that which belongs to Krishna. And Maya, of course, catches up on everyone, and we get dutifully punished by Maya. So in one sense, that's going on in every walk of life in this material world, from top to bottom, that unless we recognize everything is meant for Krishna's pleasure, then we'll get beaten by Maya. As Mother Yasoda came with the intention of beating Krishna, but didn't actually beat him, but intention of so. And similarly, in the material world, the living entity does get beaten by Maya because we take which doesn't belong to us. But we don't learn a lesson very well. We're very, if at all, we may not yet learn a lesson. Very slow learners. We get beaten again and again. Still, in this case, it's different from Krishna's case. But in this case, out of envy, It's still determined to try to oppose Krishna. We're like Janananda, sort of beaten almost to death on 17 occasions when he attacked Mathura, the intention of killing Krishna, destroying his dynasty. But every time Krishna completely defeated him, completely wiped out his whole armies. Krishna had a plan, he let him live. But 17 times and still he wouldn't give up. Very determined not to surrender. Very determination we have, but it's determination not to surrender to Krishna. If that determination could be to surrender to Krishna, we would be quite, I think our spiritual path could be opened up pretty quick. Determination to surrender, determined to surrender to Krishna. But generally speaking, people being so self-centered, even though they get punished, they will not accept there is no God, I don't believe in this. They make up a philosophy that there's no life after death anyway, so who cares? There is no karma, there is no reincarnation, there is no God, there's no demigod, there's not even a soul. It's just a material reaction, so I'm not even to blame anyway. It's just simply a material reaction going on here. So just make the most of it while you can. Whoever that is that's making the most of that material reaction is another thing. But that's the idea. Try to enjoy now. Don't worry about the future. Of course, within our little experience of this life, we do have some intelligence to understand. There's a little more to it than that. But beyond this life, there's nothing. That's what they say. So make the most of your life to the last moment. Enjoy while you can. Childish mentality, lack of intelligence, or real intelligence. And all the intelligence is channeled towards trying to enjoy this little few moments we're in this body. Unfortunately, we don't use our intelligence to get released from the body. It's like a prisoner in the prison uses all their intelligence how to enjoy within this prison. But if he was, different things may be discussed there, but in principle, one should try to get out of the prison. The intelligence should be used how to get out of this prison, not how to make the prison a nice place, but all of our intelligence, how to make this material world a nice place. We're ruining it anyway. We're not even making it a nice place, but that's the idea. Maybe some people are, exploiting others and they feel they are making it like that. But in general, we're ruining the planet. We're ruining our lives. We're ruining the lives of others in so many ways. Utilizing this human life and misutilizing the gifts which God has given us around us. This is the unfortunate fate of society today. Anyway, it's just like that. Just thinking in terms of here and now, like a child. So Krishna is thinking, although there's a little worry, that worry is always there. Oh, what's going to happen if we do this? Oh my goodness, what's going to happen after death? What's going to happen if I get sick? What's going to happen, when my mother, father, my brothers, whatever it is, what's going to happen? We're always a little bit fearful. There's that fear. So Krishna was a little afraid that he was going to get punished. Mother Yasoda, upon seeing him, very cautiously approached him from behind. Purport. When Mother Yasoda was able to trace Krishna by following his butter-smeared footprints, there's another aspect of childish mentality you don't realize. You give the game away. Most people give the game away. They can't keep a secret. And their face is the index of the mind. You can tell from that. No, I didn't do it. Every child, especially children. Hello, who did this? I didn't do it. And sometimes even before you even ask, the child's there, there's a broken pot on the floor, sees the mother. I didn't do it. He hasn't even asked if he did it or not. It's a kind of a childish response, trying to protect, defend ourselves. And adults, we also do everything we can to defend our own position, our own behavior, our own whatever it is, situation. This is the nature of living into it. Defense is one of the most prominent characteristics of a conditioned soul and human life. Not only animal life, but also in human life, it's very prominent. It's not just means physical defense, which is also there, but the subtle defense to protect our illusion from others. This is the source of fear. When we are attached to something we're not, we become afraid. Fear comes. So living as we're very afraid of losing that which is not theirs, or losing their false identity, because of ignorance, lack of knowledge of who we are, lack of knowledge of to whom everything belongs, etc. She saw that Krishna was stealing butter, and thus she smiled. Meanwhile, the crows also entered the room and came out in fear. When they saw Mother Yasoda with a stick, they became afraid. Thus, Mother Yasoda found Krishna stealing butter and very anxiously looking here and there and afraid that someone's going to catch me in my act. Thieves are always like this, they're all looking around. In a different way, we're like that too. We're thieves. You go along the high street and people look in the window, looking here and there. What's for sale? What's this? What's that? Nothing belongs to us. Think, now I've got this, I've got that. Very proud. But nothing really belongs to us. Well, because we're living in a society of thieves, there's so-called honesty amongst thieves, but it's not honesty, because the other thieves aren't going to punish you for stealing something that doesn't belong to you. Anyway, but because they're in the same mentality. So it's a society of thieves. Because no one is recognizing everything belongs to Krishna and everything should be utilized for Krishna. They think it's for me, it's worth for us. You get people like save the environment, but they're just as maybe a little bit more pious in terms of material things, but just as crazy or ignorant as anyone else, because they think it belongs to us and we think we should be like this and they think it should be like that. But nobody knows the truth. That doesn't belong to you. Yeah? Even if you make it nice and you think it's ours, it's just as much thievery. It's not any different. It's still theft. It doesn't belong to us. This whole idea of, I like this and I like that, and it should be this and that, is all completely, ignorance. It's opposed to Krishna consciousness. And the natural conditioned souls we do, but it has to be connected to Krishna, otherwise it's just as binding as those who are exploiting the material world. Also exploiting it for my sense enjoyment, because I think it'd be better if it's naturally like this. Neither is good, just different modes of nature. So I'm going to read one more, then we're going to hear something very funny from Jiva Goswami. When Lord Sri Krishna saw his mother, stick in hand, he very quickly got down from the top of the mortar and began to flee, as if very much afraid. Although yogis tried to capture him as Paramatma by meditation, desiring to enter into the effulgence of the Lord with great austerities and penances, they failed to reach him. But Mother Yasoda, thinking that same personality of Godhead, Krishna, to be her son, began following Krishna to catch him. That's a very important, you could say, philosophical as well as devotional point. But before we do go to that one, we just cover one more thing here, which I think one lovely little pastime. This is from a book called Gopal Champu, which was a compilation by Jiva Goswami. And maybe you've never heard it, but anyway, just read about the story. Prabhupada does refer to it on a few occasions. We're just going to read the story here a little bit behind the scenes from Jiva Goswami himself. Let's see, where should we start? Okay. So, she silently, okay, we'll start here. Krishna is on the mortar and he's feeding the monkeys. Actually, it's described that he stole the milk products to feed the monkeys. He was on a bed. He got on top of a bed and somehow or another reached up and broke or stole the milk products from the pots. And then he got on top of a mortar to feed the monkeys. She silently approached him in order to catch her thieving son. But seeing her, he began to flee. In some accounts, it said he saw a reflection. The monkeys were in front of him, and he saw a reflection in their eyes of Mother Yasoda approaching from behind. The monkeys ran. Monkeys, when they see a stick, they do run. They have a little intelligence there. They know that that might be a beating stick, and they run for their lives. Most animals are like that, even big bulls. Usually when you have a little kid, you know, a 1 meter high kid and a bull which weighs 300 kilos, and the kid weighs 20 kilos. We've got a little stick, the bull will run for its life sometimes, you know. Taps it. Their intelligence is limited in that way, how nature works. And the monkeys ran, of course, and Krishna also, seeing danger approaching, danger at every step. So he was getting afraid here. The proud monkeys became fooled from. I'll go back a little bit. It is well known that the thief has 100 eyes, whereas the owner of wealth has only 2. This is an interesting analogy. The thief is always looking in every direction. He's got 100 eyes. He's expert at looking at everything, hearing, and his senses are very sharp. Whereas the owner of the house only has 2. The thief is looking everywhere. It's a nice analogy. Therefore, thieves are usually the more successful in their business than the protection. The proud monkeys became fooled from eating the butter. Yasoda took a stick, and covering it with cloth, she approached. Seeing her, he quickly climbed a tree. She ran after her fleeing son, but the flowers fell from her bound hair. We heard that last week, how the flowers out of love for Mother Yasoda was thinking, what am I doing in her high on this hair of Mother Yasoda? I should be touching her lotus feet, taking the dust of her feet. And the flowers jumped for joy out of her hair to take the dust of her feet. So the flowers fell. King of thieves, she said, where are you going? His beauty increased by his indistinct smiling and crying combined. She pursued him to catch him, but she could not catch him, just as a group of clouds going west by the wind cannot catch a small cloud going to the east. It's funny, big clouds, sometimes you get these air pockets, big clouds, but there's a little cloud going that way and it can't stop it. It's going in opposite direction there in the sky. He ran where he thought his mother could not follow him. Thinking no one else was around, she followed him. When he ran without looking back, she could not catch him. When he looked back in fear, she was able to catch him with her hand. When he looked back with fear, he used his eyes to try to find some way of escaping and began weeping to remove his mother's anger. He made his body falsely tremble out of boldness, but he could not wipe out his bad behavior. When she came face to face with him, he tried to cover his ghee-soaked limbs by smearing himself with dust. It looked like he was stealing the ghee. He's covered in dust now. Seeing this, Yasoda said, if you want to steal in this house, then look at this stick in my hand. Because in previous chapters, we've been getting this whole pastime between the gopis and Mother Yasoda. Your son, you have to do something. Punish him and so on. He's stealing our butter. And Mother Yasoda saying, no. He's defending back and forth, arguing going on, accusing each other. You foul-mouthed woman, how can you speak about this like about my son? And on it goes, enjoying this kind of rasa, which appears to be a rasa of, horror or envy or anger or whatever it may be. But it's a spice. If you have a nice sabji, dal, it's nicer if it's properly spiced. And if it's not properly spiced, it becomes unpalatable. But when properly spiced, it becomes very tasty, preparation like that. So similarly within rasa, a little bit of spice makes it even more tasty. So a little bit of the indirect rasas come in, making the primary rasa even more relishable. Variety. Too much is not good, but a certain amount makes it very relishable. It's not that all the time Krishna is, this particular, of course it does have its eternality in its own, and you can say on its own feet, but in the overall picture, there are so many aspects to the primary relationship, and the spicings of different kinds do come in, but they're not the primary aspect. The loving exchanges of a different nature are the primary ones. Ah, yes. Mother, Krishna says, mother, do not beat me. With a hidden smile, she said, but you are a thief. In this way, a quarrel began. You are the king of thieves, she said. Your father's lineage they're all thieves. In this way, the mother argued with the infant who had stolen the ghee. Krishna said, I'm not sure who's speaking. Anyway, how did the yogurt pot break? It was the Supreme Lord's stick. Who gave ghee to the monkeys? Oh yeah, okay, this is just a comment. How did the yogurt pot break? It was the Supreme Lord's stick. Who gave ghee to the monkeys? He who created monkeys gave it to them. I think that you always taste and eat the fresh ghee meant for sacrifices. After Yasoda scolded the infant as a thief, her heart softened. Smiling but with anger, she said, you should tell your secret and give up your pride. When the mother said this, her son began weeping. When you ran quickly, this is Krishna's response, when you ran quickly, the pot broke because of being struck by your anklets. What is my fault in this? And so he's blaming Mother Yasoda. You broke the pot. You ran so quickly you didn't notice that your anklets hit the pot and it broke. It wasn't me. Inspired by the Lord, this is Krishna speaking. Inspired by the Lord, the monkeys entered the house to steal. When they pulled out the ghee, I caught it. What is my fault? So he's now saying, it wasn't me. The monkeys broke in and they started stealing the ghee and I tried to stop them. Seeing you holding a stick, I ran away like a thief. Seeing that I was frightened, you tried to mercilessly beat me without justice. Actually, I'm going to run away. Coming at me with a stick for no reason. Yasoda spoke with repentance. O best of thieves, with clever words. Though you are the son of a king of Braj, you are fond of monkeys and have the nature of a monkey. Fearful and to give fear to his mother, Krishna said, if I am a monkey, then I will go to the forest and stay there. His mother began to worry with fear. Who can understand him? A proud child will do this. So what does she do? And let's find out later. Go back to the Bhagavatam. Did we get to? When Lord Krishna, text number 9, saw his mother's stick in hand, he very quickly got down from the top of the mortar and began to flee, as if very much afraid. Although yogis tried to capture him as Paramatma by meditation. We heard that earlier on. In the purport, Prabhupada says, yogis, mystics, want to catch Krishna as Paramatma. And with great austerities and penances, they try to approach him, yet they cannot. What's that verse? In the Brahma Samhita? Vedeshu Sulabhu Madhulavam Atma Bhaktu. Yes, a beautiful verse in the Brahma Samhita. Krishna cannot be caught, understood by the study of the Vedas. No matter how much learning we have, he's only understood Atma Bhakti when our heart is enriched in devotional service. This is the only way he's caught. Prabhupada's comments how the great mystics, they can meditate, they can travel at the speed of the mind, travels at millions of miles a second, whatever speed. They can go whatever it is, they can never catch Krishna. He's beyond their ability to catch him. He's only caught, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, by bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyastasvita. Only by devotional service can I be understood. Can you even see me in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna can only be seen by devotion, by devotees imbued with devotional service. The knowledge of Bhagavad Gita can only be understood by devotees. No one can understand it. Maybe some mixed understanding, but the pure understanding of the words of Krishna are revealed only in the heart of the pure unalloyed devotees. Similarly here, he cannot be captured or tied by anyone. That's the difference between the bhakta and the yogi or the meditator or whatever it is. Yogis cannot reach Krishna, but for pure devotees like Mother Yasoda, Krishna is already caught. It's just a pastime. He's already completely under her captivation. Krishna was even afraid of Mother Yasoda's stick. This was mentioned by Queen Kunti in her prayers. Maya bhavanaya stitasya. Krishna is afraid of Mother Yasoda, and yogis are afraid of Krishna. Let's see. It's a fact. Everyone's afraid of God. And even in religion, they depict God almost like a fearful punisher or something. But here we see that, Mother Yasoda is afraid of Krishna forever. She's about the Krishnas, when we say. Krishna's afraid of Mother Yasoda, whereas everyone else is afraid of Krishna. And Krishna himself is afraid of, it appears to be, of Mother Yasoda. He's controlled by his devotees. Whether it's love in various manifestations, in this case, love of Mother Yasoda, in a sense to punish her child so that he doesn't grow up like a thief or a naughty boy. Sometimes children have to be admonished. So Mother Yasoda is thinking like that, but it's out of love for Krishna. Pure, everything is for love for Krishna, nothing else. And Krishna is controlled by that pure love. Manjana Trita Bhakti Valochana is controlled by the love, and the eye is imbued with the love, devotion, pure devotion. And then only one can see how Krishna reveals himself when his heart is full of love. Krishna is afraid of Mother Yasoda. Yogis try to reach Krishna by Jnana Yoga and other yogas, but fail. Yet although Mother Yasoda is a woman, Krishna was afraid of her, as clearly described in this verse. I mean, Krishna has just killed so many demons. Already he's killed 3. Yes, and Putana, Shakadasura, Trinavarta. He showed the universal form to his mother. He's already done quite a few things. He's a small kid. And now he's afraid. And he had no fear of Trinavarta. He was joyfully on his great demons up in the air, high in the sky, hanging on his neck. Krishna wasn't afraid at all. He very happily brought the demon down to the ground to death and was fearless. But Krishna can never be afraid of his own energy. But at the same time, he's afraid of Mother Yasoda's stick. Amazing. Krishna's loving reciprocation. While following Krishna, Mother Yasoda, her thin waist overburdened by the heavy breast, naturally had to reduce her speed. Because of following Krishna very swiftly, her hair became loose and the flowers in her hair were falling after her, yet she did not fail to capture her son Krishna. Purport: Yogis cannot capture Krishna by severe penances and austerities, but Mother Yasoda, despite all obstacles, was finally able to catch Krishna without difficulty. This is the difference between a yogi and a bhakta. Yogis cannot even enter the effulgence of Krishna. Yasya prabhava bhavato jagadanda koti koti shu. In that effulgence, there are millions of universes, but yogis and jnanis cannot enter that effulgence even after many, many years of austerity, whereas bhaktas can capture Krishna simply by love and affection. This is the example shown here by Mother Yasoda. Krishna therefore confirms that if one wants to capture him, one must undertake devotional service. We've already heard that verse from Bhagavad Gita. When caught by Mother Yasoda, next verse 11. When caught by Mother Yasoda, Krishna became more and more afraid and admitted to being an offender as she looked upon him. So now he's caught, he's trying to get away with it. Sometimes you're in court and things aren't going your way. Okay, I did it. Please don't punish me as much. Became more and more afraid and admitted to being an offender. As she looked upon him, she saw that he was crying, his tears mixing with the black ointment around his eyes, and as he rubbed his eyes with his hands, he smeared the ointment all over his face. Mother Yasoda, catching her beautiful son by the hand, mildly began to chastise him. From these dealings between Mother Yasoda and Krishna, we can understand the exalted position of a pure devotee in loving service to the Lord. Yogis, jnanis, karmis, and vedantis cannot even approach Krishna. They must remain very, very far away from him and try to enter his bodily effulgence. Although they're unable to do. They're thieves. They are the thieves. The devotees are not the thieves. They're the thieves. They're still seeing themselves as the enjoyer. Or I have something to get, to gain, in terms of other than the pleasure of Krishna. So they maybe enter into the effulgence of the Brahman if they achieve after a long, long time. Just like a thief, when they get caught, they're put in prison. It's also part of the kingdom. It's also part of the king's property, but it's a different part. It's not a very favorable part. The Brahman effulgence is like that. It's to hell for a devotee, hell. But some people want to merge into that effulgence. They still don't want to surrender to Krishna. They still want to be independent. They failed here, but still in a prison, they're still thinking in terms of, there's not many people in the prison really reform. Most of them maintain their criminal mentality, mostly. It's going on. So similarly, in the Brahman effulgence, they're not thinking of devotional service to Krishna. They're still thieves, still criminals. Even great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva always worship the Lord by meditation and by service. Even the most powerful Yamaraj fears Krishna. Therefore, as we find in the history of Ajamil, Yamaraj instructed his followers not even to approach the devotees, what to speak of capturing them. In other words, Yamaraj also fears Krishna and Krishna's devotees. Yet this Krishna became so dependent on Mother Yasoda that when she simply showed Krishna the stick in her hand, Krishna admitted to being an offender and began to cry like an ordinary child who was so afraid of a beating. Mother Yasoda, of course, did not want to chastise her beloved child very much, and therefore she immediately threw her stick away and simply rebuked Krishna, saying, "Now, I shall bind you. I shall bind you so that you cannot commit any further offensive activity, nor for the time being can you play with your playmates." Oh, that was a really powerful one. Can't play around with your playmates. I'm going to tie you up for some time. So that was her plan. And so he was also afraid, as we just heard, that he might run away to the forest and join the monkeys there. This shows the position of a pure devotee in contrast with others. Like jnanis, yogis, and followers of Vedic ritualistic ceremonies in regarding the transcendental nature of the absolute truth. And I'll read one more verse here, and we might go back to Gopal Champu for some more, let's say, inner aspects of this pastime. Mother Yasoda was always overwhelmed by intense love for Krishna. Not knowing who Krishna was or how powerful he was, because of maternal affection for Krishna, she never even cared to know who he was. And even in our own experience, maybe, the mother, although proud of what her son is doing in one sense, that's a secondary aspect. She doesn't necessarily care whether he's this or that. Ultimately, he's my son or whatever, daughter. And that's what counts above everything else. Even when they're 50 years old, especially in the Asian countries, the son goes home, he's the president of some country, and the mother treats him just like a little kid. Sit down. Why are you so late? What have you been doing? Why did you come home earlier? Now eat your meal. It's been in the oven too long. She'll, and the boy, especially in India, you see them, they're businessmen. And many times you go to them for life membership sometimes. They say, I have to ask my mother first. I can't say yes without consulting my mother. It's like, mother's like worship as their higher authority, even though they're leading a business or something extraordinary. Mother Yasoda, therefore, when she saw her son had become excessively afraid, she threw the stick away and desired to bind him so he would not commit any further naughty activities. Purport. Mother Yasoda wanted to bind Krishna not in order to chastise him, but because she thought the child was so restless he might leave her house in fear, as we heard. That would be another disturbance. Therefore, because of full affection to stop Krishna from leaving the house, she wanted to bind him with rope. We see this with Raghunath Das Goswami's parents also. They wanted to bind him. He was mad for different reasons. He wanted to join Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and was running away, had a beautiful wife. He was the heir to a great wealth. The family was super rich. But what to do? He's the only son. He's the heir to our whole dinner, all the property, everything. So they tried to bind him up also, keep him servants, guards, everything, so he wouldn't run away. But you can't. What can you do when someone's heart is sold out to someone else? So Mother Yasoda was completely, there was nothing but Krishna in her heart. So afraid that he might go away. Of course, he'll never leave Mother Yasoda, never, ever. But she's thinking like that, had a loving motherly affection. Mother Yasoda wanted to impress upon Krishna that since he was afraid merely to see her stick, he should not perform such disturbing activities as breaking the container of yogurt and butter and distributing its contents to the monkeys. Mother Yasoda did not care to understand who Krishna was and how his power spreads everywhere. This is an example of pure love, because that type of knowledge covers the loving affection, this reverential worship, which is very prominent in most paths of religiosity or even in spirituality, as a reverential, if they're Vaishnava or theistic, a reverential approach to the Lord, which is required in the stage of coming to pure devotional service. But ultimately, that is not the highest level of devotional service. Is when one comes to a pure, totally pure, selfless platform, when one is actually completely, say, Krishnendra, one completely living for the pleasure of God or Krishna, then it's possible that the spontaneity in relationship may evolve or develop. So Mother Yasoda is just personification of paternal affection for Krishna. She's the, you can say, the origin of that paternal loving affection for Krishna. And everything else, every other form of paternal affection comes from Mother Yasoda. It's just perverted in this world because we're in the center, but it ultimately comes from Mother Yasoda. paternal affection. And all the fears. It's like an ordinary mother in this world is afraid her son is going to leave home, her daughter is going to run away, or whatever it is. That fear is there. It's there in Mother Yasoda also. That's why it's here in this world. And let's see if we can read another verse or not. Well, yeah, I think we'll have to leave that till next week. Now, the wonderful pastime of being bound. This is the, you could say, the ultimate of this pastime is when Mother Yasoda finally binds her son to that mortar, and therein what happens thereon. So we may have to leave that till next week. Because I'll read this one last verse. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no beginning and no end. No exterior, no interior. No front, no rear. In other words, he is all-pervading. For him, there is no difference between past, present, and future. He's eternal, he is unlimited. He exists in his own transcendental form at all times, being absolute beyond reality or relativity, beyond relativity, excuse me. He is free from distinctions between cause and effect, although he is the cause and effect of everything. He's not controlled by anything other than love. That unmanifested person who is beyond the perception of the senses has now appeared as a human child. And Mother Yasoda, considering him her own ordinary child, bound him to the wooden mortar with a rope. This is love. I mean, if a mother thinks of her son, like for instance, if her son happens to be in a big position, let's give a high example that the son happens to be the president of some country. He comes home to see his mother. Or, to give another example, he's chief magistrate of the court. And usually what they call the chief magistrate, His Highness. That's the title they give. Some title is given there to the chief magistrate in the court, chief big judge. So everyone in the court stands up when he comes in. He's held in high esteem. But when he goes home to see his mother, or even his wife, do they stand up and honor him? Welcome home, Your Highness, the Chief Magistrate of the court. Oh, they definitely do not do like that. If they did like that, then he would think something is wrong here. What's going on now? It's the wrong mood. It's incompatible. And ultimately, reverential devotional service is not compatible at all to the mood of loving affection in Vrindavan. There's an element of that in various other relations, to the point where it's almost totally predominant in Vaikuntha, in Ayodhya, a little bit in between different dhams. There's different degrees of reverence within. In Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, there is no reverence at all. It's just simply spontaneous loving exchanges, as if equality is, even superiority is there. Sometimes people, Prabhupada gives the example, people want to become one with God, but a devotee becomes greater than God because God comes under the control of the devotee. If you really want to get, that high position, the devotee is the controller of God, not just becoming God. He controls God. That's high position. Where will we be reading here? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is described as the Supreme Brahman. Param Brahman, Param Dhamma. The word Brahma means the greatest. Krishna is greater than the greatest, being unlimited and all-pervading. How can it be possible for the all-pervading to be measured or bound? That's one of the reasons why Krishna appears in a form. We can personally worship him and relate with him. I mean, if you just saw as the all-pervasive Brahman, I don't think you can have very much loving exchanges with an all-pervasive Brahman. How are you going to kiss the Brahman, feed the Brahman, clothe the Brahman, play, have games with the Brahman? I think there's such a possibility there. We have measurements of time, but although we are limited by past, present, and future, for Krishna, these do not exist. Every individual person can be measured, but Krishna has already shown that although he also is an individual, the entire cosmic manifestation is within his mouth. As in the previous chapter, he revealed the universal form to Maria Soda. But still, she couldn't. Oh, this is an amazing thing, some other Lord is revealing this, but she couldn't relate that to her son exactly. It's like, just sees it as like another thing. It's not that it is my son. It's like another thing. This Krishna's my son. He's just a naughty boy, and I've got to, be careful with him. All these points considered, Krishna cannot be measured. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, that which can be measured is called Maya. How then did Yasoda want to measure him and bind him? When you go to the clothing shop, sometimes they put the tape around your waist and your arms and your shoulders and everything to measure a jacket or a suit or a dress or whatever it is. So they try to get the right shape, size, everything, the right cut. The material, but Krishna cannot be measured. So he appears in a form where he appears to be measurable, but he's not measurable. He's immeasurable. We must conclude that this took place simply on the platform of pure transcendental love. This is the only cause. And here's that verse I mentioned earlier. Hare tamachutamanadimananta rupam adyam purana purusham navayogam cha vedeshu durlabam durlabam atma bhakto govindamari purusham tamam bhajami. Everything is one. The Brahma Samhita 33. Everything is one because Krishna is the supreme cause of everything. True, everything comes from Krishna. Krishna cannot be measured or calculated by Vedic knowledge. Vedeshu durlabam. He is available only to devotees. Adurlabam atma bhakto. Devotees can handle him because they act on the basis of loving service. Thus, Mother Yasoda wanted to bind him. Sweet. I think we'll leave the binding till next Sunday. If you can make a note now, we'll start at 9 o'clock. Sikananda, if he's with us, please make a note. 9 o'clock, unless something else crops up. 9 o'clock next Sunday, we'll be hearing Krishna being bound by Mother Yasoda. We heard last week about how this pastime was very dear to Radharani. And I'll just read to you and finish on that little reading about Mother, how this pastime is so dear to, oh no, we won't. I'm going to leave it because it does come up in the purport next week. If we are Krishna willing, if we get there. So we'll read that next week as a little extra next week. Another reasons why this pastime, or why we chant Radha Damodara, not Yasoda Damodara. A little bit more information on that one. We'll leave it to next week. Okay, well, I'm going to finish there and ask if there's any questions or comments. We're in Govardhan. We just had Govardhan Puja, as you can see. We're still at Govardhan. And it was Prabhupada's last, one of his last wishes was to go on Parikrama of Govardhan in his last days amongst us, in terms of our physical, we could say, vision. It was one of Prabhupada's last wishes to go on Parikrama of Govardhan. So tomorrow, it's actually the day after tomorrow, I think we took Prabhupada Govardhan Parikrama. Okay, any questions or comments we'll take on chat if you wish. I'd like to thank you all. At the last minute, you had like maybe 15 minutes notice, and I'm surprised to see more devotees than usual online, actually. Maybe this is the way to do it, Vasikananda. I don't know. There's more than usual today, right? Slightly. Amazing. Thank you all so much for giving us your precious time. Please use your time nicely in Krishna service. Any chats? Any chit chat? Chit means, what is that? Spiritual knowledge, chat. So any chats about chit chat? In English we say chit chat. Any questions or comments? Please do either make an indication that Sikananda can open you up to ask or put it on chat. Somebody just came in. Let me see. Hare Krishna. Yesterday in the Bhagavatam, I read that it is possible to pray to demigods for anything, whether it is or isn't, I'm not sure. If Krishna is the predominant, can you enlighten me on this? Thank you. Not 100% sure the angle of the question. I guess it means is, why would we pray to demigods if Krishna is the supreme origin of everything? Well, there also, you'll see that, in fact, this month of Damodara particularly, we'll hear a little bit about that next week, how Radharani herself, and the other gopis, and we heard that on Govardhan Puja also, how a devotee always feels himself incompetent or unqualified to approach Krishna directly. What qualification do we have? So the only, even Radharani was speaking on Govardhan Puja, we just mentioned it briefly, but there's a very wonderful discussion in Venu Gita about Radharani and her, because Krishna also appears to disappear from the Rasa Lila and creates this mood of Vipalamba separation from the Lord, a very intense mood of a devotee, of feeling, even a fear of separation, or speak of apparent separation. Radharani wondering how we could get Krishna's favor. How? And they're discussing it, and only if we can somehow get the mercy of a pure devotee. So who is the most pure? Who is the greatest devotee? We can't, Krishna can just do like that, but he's controlled by his devotees. So if we get the mercy of his devotees, surely they, by their mercy, we can get Krishna in their case, or whatever it is. By the mercy of a Vaishnava only can we attain our goals in life. So Radharani eventually, after discussing with her gopi close associates, with Vishaka, Lalita, Chitradevi, Tungabidya, and so others, who discussed his subject matter, they concluded that none is a greater devotee than Govardhan. He's Haridas Yavarya, he's the greatest of all the devotees, and he's Krishna himself. So the origin of the greatest devotee also, in one sense, is simultaneously Krishna, yet seemingly different. The greatest devotee is Govardhan. So they appealed to Govardhan for his blessings, his mercy, so they could get Krishna. So similarly, a devotee feels unqualified to directly approach Krishna, although the devotees tell us to pray to Krishna, we do, but in reality, it's through the devotee that one can approach Krishna. So Mother Yasoda, Radharani was performing with the gopis various prayers, vratas. We go this Katyayana vrat in December, and various other appeals to various great devotees. The demigods are also devotees. They may be different levels. The Katyayana vrata is, although it appears to be a ceremony maybe to a demigoddess, but it actually is ultimately is the expansion of the internal potency in this world that they're approaching to get. It's like when we chant Hare, Hare Krishna, we go through Hare, Hare, as we say Radharani, or the internal potency of the Lord, in order we don't directly say Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. We may some songs we may sing, but Primarily, we chant Hare Krishna. We go through the devotee to approach Krishna, Radha Krishna. We don't go direct. So that's the general. That's the pure devotee tells us to do something which appears to be direct. It's another thing, but even in deity worship, you always understand that we're assisting the pure devotee. We go through the pure devotees for their blessings. How to worship the deity, we have no idea. They teach us. So it's through the media. How we can approach Krishna is through the media of the devotee. So they're also teaching that. They're also teaching that. So the devotees are to Vidya of the Lord. It's not different in sense. Krishna is never alone. He's always with his devotees. And he says himself in the 9th canto of Bhagavatam in the pastime of Ambrish Maharaj, those who think themselves my devotees are not my devotees. Those who are the devotees are my devotees. They are actually my devotees. There's no one more dear to me than those devotees. It comes up again and again in the Bhagavatam, how important, how dear the devotees are to Krishna. Lord Kapila Dev's teachings, the same thing is given there. How important the association of devotees is, how elevated they are. Maharaj Rahugana, Jun Bharat explains to Rahugana Maharaj how one can get this transcendental knowledge is only by the mercy. Prahlad Maharaj also says the same thing, only by the mercy of the devotees is it possible. We have to approach the devotees. Approaching devotees at different stages may seem different, but the principle is the same. We have to serve the devotees, whether it's the superiors, we may be praying to them, serving them in various ways, etc., etc. But it's by their mercy that we can get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, the mercy of Krishna, Radharani, the mercy of Krishna. We go through the devotees. So various prayers are there, and sometimes the pure devotees appear to be going through the same process. Prabhupada himself was praying to Radharani for the mercy, her mercy, that he could never fall into the material world and will always be engaged in Krishna's service. It's the mercy of the devotees which captures Krishna. So we have to approach the devotees to get his mercy. Let's see. Rupa Raghunath Ji, Hari Bol. Which rasa, the pot, and other objects, like I could say spices, objects, I thought it says spices, it says objects, in Vraj have with Krishna, does the Shantarasa exist in Vraj? His nice question. Well, there are trees, there are plants, there are airs, waters, rocks in Vraj. Yes, but the prominent one is Dasya. In this case, Dasya. It's of course, these things are very, let's say, beyond my understanding by any means. But in principle, the prominent rasa there, although they appear to be in a stage of, like they're usually listed in the Shantarasa, everything is there in Vraj. Shantarasa is there also. Everything is there. However, the mood of the Shantarasa is not like the Shantarasa of the Brahman. Personal kind of motionless, not just motion, emotionless. It's a mood of existing only for the pleasure of Krishna. It's the mood of bringing pleasure to Krishna. So even in that stage, there have to be the existence of you can say the backdrop or the facilities have to be there. They may not be a seemingly so active role, but they're also active. We hear of the rocks, the trees bending down and touching Krishna's feet, providing unlimited varieties of fruits and flowers for Krishna's pleasure, the rocks melting to provide all kinds of perfect arrangements for the Lord's comfort, be it they go hot in the winter and warm in the winter and cool in the summer, the rocks. They become soft when Krishna wants to lie on a soft bed. And when he wants, they change colors according to Krishna's desire. They're not just a rock, stood there with next to no consciousness. They're fully conscious. And their consciousness is simply how I simply exist for Krishna's pleasure. So Krishna is reciprocating with their love for him. So it's Shanta, but not the Shanta that we may Sayugya Mukti or something. Not that type of liberation or that type of Shanti. This Shanti is one of providing all the facilities, beds and chairs and furnitures and whatever it is for the Krishna, jewelry for Krishna's pleasure. Everything is for Krishna's pleasure. So the pots themselves are in this particular situation, all for Krishna's pleasure. It's like, something's beautiful to us. It's, it's beautiful colors, beautiful fragrances, so many things are there which bring pleasure to the conditioned soul. And the spiritual realm is the same thing. So there's what evolves in that, people in that mood, but they love Krishna. I guess you can enter into that situation. It's not very, you could say, not something very attractive to our mundane perspective. I want to become a pot in the spiritual world. What do you want to be? I want to be a pot in the spiritual world so that Krishna might break me or something. It's like, you don't usually think like that. And that's not usually Lord Chaitanya's emphasis, to say the least. But it is there, everything by the arrangement of Krishna, all these various aspects of pleasure are there in Goloka Vrindavan. Everything is there. Okay. How do we develop the mood of tolerance? There are often different kinds of people and even devotees around us who may sometimes even be an obstruction for our seva. How do we deal with such situations with tolerance and avoid Vaishnava aparad? I'm probably not a good person to ask. I don't have that sort of tolerance. And if there is, it's just a show, just to make out as a devotee of some kind or another, amongst others who may not be able to detect or so humble they don't even bother pointing it out. But what is that? What is real tolerance? What is real tolerance? Real tolerance is not just, sustaining and controlling yourself and biting your lip. No, don't punch them. Don't scream. No, it won't be good. No. This is not what pure devotees are. This is not the mood of Toro Peace Sahishnu. It's more tolerant. A tree doesn't hit back, but perhaps it's uncomfortable with being cut. I don't know. Can't remember. But whatever it is, oftentimes tolerance is mixed with other emotions. It's not pure. So tolerance is born of love and compassion. It's not born of, application, implementing a certain behavior pattern on a situation and trying to manifest it in every similar situation. And boy, you're so tolerant. How do you tolerate this, Prabhu? It can be with false ego as well. I mean, there's a limit to that, but it can be quite prominent. And even if it's with knowledge, it's good, it's with knowledge, but that's not the actual root. The root is compassion. When we look at Haridas Thakur, for instance, there is a symptom, or there is an example of extreme tolerance when he was being beaten by the guards. The Muslim guards were trying to beat him to death. He tolerated without being disturbed. And we see this as preliminary theme of Bhagavad Gita. But there's much more to it than that. His tolerance was based upon genuine compassion. He had love for those guards. He was thinking of only their welfare. For the pleasure of the Lord, he felt, I deserve to be beaten more. And please, my Lord, show your mercy on these guards. He was feeling, his heart was burning for their, you can't tolerate that other people are suffering in this world. This is tolerance. There's one thing you can't tolerate, and that is the suffering of others. Ultimately, that goes back to the suffering of Krishna. Tolerance in this world is based on that principle. Whatever it takes to please Krishna is simply to please Krishna. And it appears the devotee doesn't tolerate sometimes when Krishna's pleasure is being interfered with, being broken. Lord Chaitanya was ready to kill Madai because of what he did to Nitai. Although he can be more tolerant. But when his pure devotee was being offended, he didn't tolerate. So there's a room for what appears to be intolerance, but it's actually the actual, you could say, the ultimate tolerance. You cannot tolerate anything which doesn't bring pleasure to Krishna. So it's based upon love of Krishna and compassion to all living entities. The punishment given therein is actually for the welfare of all living entities. It's not out of one's own personal anger, so to speak. It's only in relationship with Krishna. Not because you got in my way, you hurt me, therefore I'm going to kill you. And we don't think like that. Maybe you hurt my body, maybe you hurt my mind. He sees Krishna's hand working behind the scene. I certainly deserve much more than that. Prabhupada writes in the teachings of Queen Kunti that the devotee sees that somebody is, causing a harm or whatever it may be. He sees that in some ways as this is Krishna's mercy, releasing me of so many reactions to my past, etc. Now that doesn't mean to say that in the course of duty in life that we therefore just don't act. You may have to act, but it should be acting. Ultimately, acting with compassion. In the meantime, acting under authority, according to Guru Shastra Sadhu. That's why different rules and scriptures are there. Try to act within the scriptural rules. So, although we may not have the realization, at least we're on the path of correct activity or correct behavior. This takes time. And that way, you can also be apparently tolerant because you're following authority. Tolerate either way, tolerate the result of being chastised for acting in such a way, or for being chastised in the first place. But if one is acting on the basis of Guru Shastra Sadhu, then one doesn't necessarily have to fear that. But on a higher level, that tolerance is one of compassion for the person or the situation which is causing us harm or pain, appears to be anyway. We know nothing happens without the will of the Lord, and one feels sorry for the perpetrators. As Jesus, when he was being, so say, crucified, he was praying, please forgive them, they know not what they do. Devotees was feeling like that. Not putting himself in the center, but putting Krishna in the center and feeling compassion for Krishna, meaning how to bring all these conditioned souls back to Krishna for Krishna's pleasure. No matter what it takes. Prabhupada tolerated so much to spread this movement, tolerated so much nonsense in a sense, he even accepted nonsense disciples like myself, but still he was so tolerant, allowed so many things to pass, in the hope that somehow or another we would become serious one day. He took that great risk on his shoulders, in his heart. Asurasika. In this conversation between Mother Yasoda and Krishna, Krishna appears to be lying and accusing Mother Yasoda of breaking the pot due to her running. How do we understand Krishna's apparent lying? Is it part of Hasya Ras or to enact the behavior of a child? Well, what do you think? I mean, when you hear these things, what do? Call the police. What do? You start laughing, right? This is so funny. Krishna, what are you talking about? Everything is the origin of everything. This brings fun. You'll see next week a similar thing. It brings pleasure to all the devotees. The whole purpose of existence is the pleasure potency, Ladini Shakti. Everything is within that. Krishna is the most expert at churning pleasure. Don't you get fun sometimes playing or joking with somebody? And you tell a story and they believe it. It's so funny seeing people believe it's a joke. It's kind of fun, And even in ordinary dealings, it's there sometimes. I can't think right now. But many times these type of examples come up. you're talking to a friend or a lover or something, and you say something which isn't actually true at all, but oh, come on, will you stop doing that? It's kind of fun, you know. You get both parties then have a laugh. And it's just part. It's not the whole, it's a part. It's a part of enriching, nourishing the loving affection, in this case, parental affection. It nourishes that loving relationship between mother and child. And it's all part of bringing pleasure to the devotees. They laugh and hear these funny pastimes. And so there's a strong element of hasya ras there, the humorous aspect, in amongst the relationship there. So yeah, that's a mixture of rasas, you could say. Well, whatever happens there is, you can guarantee in relation with Krishna as pure devotees, does nothing but nourish, enhance, deepen the loving exchanges. If there was no apparent lying, and there's not really any lying, because ultimately everything comes from Krishna anyway. Lying is something in the relative world, you could say, which is not generally recommended. In the spiritual world, everything is spontaneous. So Krishna speaks in such a way as to enhance Mother Yasoda's mood, her loving mood towards her son, or to bring pleasure to the other gopis around, or whoever it is, the cowherd boys, to bring everyone pleasure. Because I don't know if there were cowherd boys there at that moment, but they would certainly be laughing if they heard Krishna speaking like that, because they would have seen what actually happened. So they'd be laughing, trick. It's a game. You like games? So this is one of the games in the spiritual world, this kind of trick like this, you try to trick the other party. It's all fun. Okay, a question from Rishi Kumar above. Rishi Kumar Prabhu, are you in Philippines? Where's Rishi? Can you answer that? Nasika, can you get an answer from it? Our dear Rishi Kumar. My words, I saw you the other day online. It's so nice to see you.
Yes, Maharaja, I'm in the Philippines.
Far out, Rishi. I'm so happy to see you. Thank you. You joined us for several sessions recently. It's so good to see you. Thank you very, very much. Is it okay if we use technology in advancing my spiritual life without the association of the devotees? Well, certainly if it helps us to advance in spiritual life, what choice do we have? We're doing it now. Of course, we want the association. It's another form of association when we communicate online. And sometimes there's no choice, as for many, that may be the case now. But generally, we always try to get the literal association of devotees when we can. But in the absence of that, this enhances our desire as a form of separation, which increases our desire to participate. And I remember one time when I went alone, more or less alone, to Uganda. I was staying in Kenya, and I more or less went alone to Uganda. And I realized, various reasons, but although I was feeling a little bit over familiar in the association in Kenya, a few things took place. I wasn't very happy with what was done, who did it, and so on. I just wanted to get away. But then I realized when I was on my own just how, although there may be in our present situation faults in the association of devotees, which appear like faults anyway, how valuable that association is, how rare that association is. It may not be what we envision as the association of pure, unalloyed devotees, but it's still extraordinary to get that opportunity in this world. When you go out and preach Krishna consciousness a little bit on the streets or wherever it is in public, you definitely get to realize just how rare a devotee is. Even though they may not be so advanced, they're still very, very rare, precious association. We sometimes become over familiar, we go commit an offense or whatever, we just cut off. And then we really appreciate that association after all. But in the situation which you may well be in the Philippines right now with lockdown, you cannot go to the temple, you can't go to Sangha, whatever it may be, then definitely technology is, by the grace of Vishwakarma, whoever is a demigod allowing these things, I don't know, whoever is the demigod of technology, and whoever it is, thank you very much, because you're providing this facility where devotees can keep in touch, continue to spread Krishna consciousness, continue to hear from each other, continue to serve each other in various ways, etc. So yes, everything can be used in Krishna. Rupa Goswami's, one of his cardinal instructions is Nibandha Krishna Sambandha Yukta Varaga Chite. Everything should be utilized. Anything and everything that can be used in Krishna service should be utilized. That's his real purpose. Purifies that object and shows others how they can also utilize, and engages us in devotional association and service. So yes, using computers, mobile phones, technology of various kinds is very important for most people at this point of time, and very valuable. I don't have any question of doubt about that. But it's not like an alternative. It can be an addition to, but not an alternative to the opportunity to actually get association. In addition to. And in many cases, it has to be the primary method, but it's not the ultimate method. It's not the ultimate method. It's the principle behind it. Desiring, developing an appreciation, developing respect, desire to serve the devotees, to be with devotees, to hear from devotees, etc. Because they're very rare. The greatest gift in this world is the opportunity to associate with devotees, and the gift which they give, the opportunity to engage in devotional service. It's so valuable. Is that it? One more. How can we get fully focused on the Maha Mantra? To be fully attentive and not mentally wandering all over the place during Harinam, Japa, or Kirtan all the time. Well, at least you're steady all the time. Please, what should be our meditation on tomorrow? This is a big question from Matushka, very big questions here. It's ongoing, and there's so many seminars, books, discussions, lectures on the subject matter of the wandering mind. And this is like a topic of which normally takes many, even you can say 1 word, 2 words, but it usually goes on for such a long time discussing how to, say, deal with this. Is it a battle against the mind? Is it a prayerful approach which is required, which Prabhupada emphasized, a prayerful approach? The answer to this will depend on individuals also. It's not necessary, if we're giving an external answer, that is something practical. It will vary from person to person. Even meditation on Prabhupada tomorrow will vary from individuals to individuals on his material bhav. But the mood should be one of surrender. The same in the holy name. Our whole process is one of surrender. As they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. So we may not be in the mood of surrender because we're so still preoccupied with so many other things other than surrender to Krishna's will. So many other things are there, but we can pray for that. Association is extremely important in all of these subject matters, online if you have to, or physical if you can, but association with devotees. Now, association with devotees is not sitting there like a pudding and mumbling away and bubbling away like, boiling milk or something. It's not like that, it's a whole room full of bubbling bottles of jam or something. It's not like that. It's revealing one's heart also. Why is our mind distracted? It's not distracted just because. And it's not just because of the environment. because we have no attraction to Krishna, or very little. Something, say we wouldn't be here at all. But the development of the attraction towards devotional service, towards devotees, towards the Krishna, and so on and so forth, needs to be there. Without that attraction, then the taste for these other things continually comes. Everyone's different in terms of what attracts us. Prabhupada said the first thing usually attracts us is service of various kinds. So you said kirtan, for instance. Now I know lots of those whose minds are not distracted during kirtan. They just, somehow just get into kirtan, but they're very distracted during japa. And that may be some devotees, like cooking, for instance. From my own perspective, to me, cooking is the most meditative service. I love to cook. It's so absorbing. I don't hardly ever cook, but it's so absorbing. When you cook for the devotees and the deities, it is such a meditation. It's so absorbing. Just got to be careful not to be overwhelmed by, offenses and so on. But the service itself is so absorbing. You haven't got time to think of the world or anything that's going on in the world around you. It's just absorption in making whatever it is you're trying to be, prepare some particular preparation. Other devotees, deity worship, others book distribution. Is somehow or other to become absorbed like that. That will enhance your attraction. And naturally, chanting, everything else will also, in time, will become more connected to that. They're all connected. So you chant while you cook, you chant while you clean, you chant while you do whatever you're doing as much as you can. Prabhupada said more chanting, not less, more. Not because I'm not attentive, therefore I will chant less. That wasn't what Prabhupada said. He said you should chant more. This is the way that we can become. And the association of devotees who are more attentive, hearing, feeling our hearts, opening up what is the actual root cause. It's not just because of, something around us. You could say it's our karma, so what are you going to do with that? But it's, how we can get down and what is the reason I'm still attached to these objects, or thoughts will come into the mind. This is described in Bhagavad Gita. As long as we're embodied, material thoughts will come into the mind, just like rivers into the ocean. But we have to be like the ocean, undisturbed, despite countless rivers flowing in. The ocean is not disturbed. So many desires will come. The problem is we're still attached to them. We're still meditating on them. We're still following them. This is the problem. It's not that them, even great devotees, thoughts may come into their minds for material sense enjoyment, but they're not interested. Just like, Janananda, spit at the thought, material desire, not at, spit at the thought in the heart. I'm not at the person outside, but in the heart. This material desire, but because their attraction is for Krishna. We may not be on that platform, so we have to engage those material desires as much as we can in Krishna's service. Purify. And the association of devotees, kirtan, more kirtan, and try to sit, chant japa together. Maybe you like to hear Prabhupada chanting at the same time, but to sit with devotees in chanting. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also recommends sometimes you have to chant a little loudly to get the mind to kind of like realize what we're doing, wake up for a while, and then go to sleep again after some time, maybe, but at least for some time, wake up, draw the mind back, as Krishna says, bring it again under the control of the self. So sometimes we have to chant a little loud, but use your common sense where you do that. Hare Krishna, and you pray prayers to the Lord. Please help me, by the mercy of the Lord. Bhaktivinoda, I think it's Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that it is impossible, he uses the word impossible. Prabhupada says impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. So that means we're fools. Number one, we're fools. So impossible is there because it's in a fool's dictionary. We're fools, so it's there. And it says it's impossible for the jiva to single-handedly overcome the distraction of inattention. Impossible, he says. It is only possible, he said, by the mercy of the Lord. Therefore, one should pray fervently for the Lord's mercy. There is no other means. So if we're actually sincere, we're not just looking for a cheap scapegoat, brush your teeth with a different toothpaste, everything will be all right. Eat 2 gulabs instead of 3, everything will be all right. Or 3 instead of 2. That sounds better. But whatever it is, it's not a mechanical adjustment. They may have some help. Not to deny there's not certain things. But ultimately it's the mercy of Krishna, mercy of the Lord and his devotees. So but that depends on our sincerity, how much you reciprocate. You may think, oh, I'll just pray, but I'm not going to make any, and we're still attached, not really sincere about it. We're not feeling repentant about the fact that our mind is wandering. Just life. Anyway, what's wrong with it? I'm still doing my 16 rounds. Anyway, it's pretty nice. I like those things anyway. Nobody knows anyway. I can still do everything else. It's not a problem. Well, you want to stay in stage, as we say, in the napkins. You can stay in your napkins for a long time like that. If we want to wake up and slowly, maybe a little slow, whatever it is, but as quick as we can, try to make progress in spiritual life in association with more mature devotees and seriously cultivating this. Let's say understand the need is so important, so valuable. We're wasting our time, allowing our mind to oscillate onto countless material, objects of sense enjoyment, various kinds, and sometimes even worse, negative thoughts about others, gross thoughts, etc., envious thoughts may come. But they have nothing to do with this. Try to remember this one thing. This, if you're talking about japa anyway, this is an appointment. Now, if you go for an interview for a job or something, generally speaking, if you're serious about getting a job, you will be very attentive. You do everything you can, dress properly, sit properly, try to say the right thing, and behave properly, etc., during that interview in order to try to get what you want. You turn your phone off, it doesn't matter who it is, you're going to turn your phone off. It may be, your favorite dog barking on the other end of the line or whatever. You're going to turn your phone off and just focus on what you come there for. So japa, whenever it is like that. Now, another example you could say is if you love somebody, boy loves girl, they don't care about anything else in the world when they're together. It means nothing. They don't even hear about it. It's interference. And so like that, we try to see that let's make it simple. 2 hours, if you have 2 hours of japa, if you're in the temple. This is my time. This is my time with Radha and Krishna. This is our time with Radha and Krishna. And okay, mind, that may be important. Maybe, we can do that later. Right now, I have an appointment with Radha and Krishna. Please come back. Someone's knocking on your door and you're really busy or on the phone to, massive, important call. Call later, please. I'm busy. I'm really busy right now in a meeting. I'm doing this or whatever it is. So the mind comes along, tap, tap, tap. Let's go. I need to go out now. I want you to come with me. I'm busy right now. If you want in 2 hours' time, you can ask me then. But for 2 hours, I cannot possibly come with you. Please. Like that. Sometimes you can reason with the mind like that. And just go back again. Okay, Radha and Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna will reciprocate. So tomorrow, what to do? Prabhupada's Tirabha. Try to remember he's always with us. Always, Prabhupada is with us in many ways. Many, many ways. It's not just a sentimental thought, oh, he left us. What am I going to do? I'm so unfortunate. You're so fortunate. He's still with you. Read his books. Hear from his transcendental sound vibration from Prabhupada's voice. Hear it. Try to follow his instruction. Meditate on his mood and mission. Try to be a part, however small it may be, in that mission of Srila Prabhupada, mission of Lord Chaitanya. How? Pray that I can become a little part to bring pleasure or to serve you in a way which will please you, Srila Prabhupada. Somehow, whatever it takes. I try to meditate on how I can be pleasing to the pure representative of the Lord that will please Krishna. So meditate on how I can do better, how I could, and just another nice thought is if Prabhupada were sitting next to you right now, literally sitting next to you, how I would behave. Would I react like this? Would I do this? Would I think this? Would I chant like that? Would I eat like this? Would I respond to, imagine somebody come, Prabhu, could you please, Prabhu, I'm really sorry to ask you. I mean, I know you're probably busy, but please, could you kindly, Sir Prashatam? No, get someone else to do it. Why are you always asking me? Would we do that if Prabhupada was stood next to us? If we did like that, our spiritual life would be finished. Simple as that. So meditating on that, Prabhupada is with us. To how he would feel if I reacted like that. Would that please Prabhupada? You have to answer. Thinking like that, try to find out what pleases Krishna, what pleases the purity. It's not just sentimental tears, blah, blah. It's not like that. It's actually wanting to, or understanding and developing the desire, what will please Prabhupada, which means what pleases our parampara, what pleases Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda, what pleases the gopis, what pleases Radharani, and ultimately what pleases Krishna. Why we're not there? Because we still have this mentality of what I want all the time. We haven't understood this basic, maybe we theoretically understand, we haven't come to the point of literally trying to pray for that and trying to practice. We had a little practice has to be there too, of self-control sometimes, understanding, hearing. We have to hear properly the subject matter of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we're blocking our own advancement in spiritual life. No one else is to blame. We're trying to engage in unalloyed devotional service, unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service. And still we're putting all kinds of conditions on it. So it takes time, but at least we should meditate tomorrow on how please guide me, please give me the strength, please, whatever it is, that I may, come to this platform. Prabhupada is always wanting, like a loving father, grandfather, whatever it is, to help us. Okay, Hare Krishna. I'm going to finish there and maybe more, but it's getting late, and so some of you, it's past midnight. It's no, it's not. It's almost midnight for some of you. Those who are in New Zealand, are they ever going to change the name of New Zealand? Is it always going to be New Zealand? They're going to change it to Old Zealand? A few New Zealanders online, I can see. Okay, we'll have a little kirtan and pray that you all take advantage of this Damodara month and hopefully help us to become a little more serious. Ekadashi is another good day. Don't forget, these days like Ekadashi, Janmashtami, Prabhupada's Tirobhav, Govardhan Puja are described by Bhaktivinoda as Madhavatiti Bhakti Janani. They're mothers of devotion for those who observe them. They help to nourish our bhakti creepers. Take advantage of them. They awaken the correct emotions in our hearts. Sometimes we get feelings of repentance. And, it helps to chisel away the hard-heartedness in our hearts sometimes. The heart is hard-hearted. It has to become softened with genuine hearing and chanting, genuine devotion, the association of Vaishnava. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We're having here at Nimarpur today an 8 or something like that, 8 or 10 hour kirtan going on. The boys down in the temple are taking in turns to lead kirtan. Of course, Agnidev Prabhu is with us and leading shortly. He's only leading for 30 minutes. There's many other kirtan leaders here. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Damodar ki jai. Shri Kartik Rata ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Wherever you are. Prabhupada said we're all packed up together when we chant together. We're not actually separated because Krishna is in the center. Try to hear this question on chanting. One of the things one little thing is you can say it's external imposition, but it's needed also. We have to do that also. Try to make an effort to hear. So don't lament about what we've done in the past and don't dream of the future. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, live in the present. So try to hear each word, each mantra carefully. One by one. Don't try to do everything at once. And the mind will wander and will slip off, but come back again. Hare Krishna. Try to hear Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. You don't have to chant that slow, but with that in mind. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. And like in any relationship, the more you're attentive to the other party, the more attentive to us they will be. If we're distracted, then the conversation will not go deep. It will be very superficial. But if we make the effort at least to hear the other person, hear Krishna, hear him. He is his name. It's not a name that we chant to achieve some other person. The name is Krishna himself. So we're actually having in one sense, we're having a conversation with Radha and Krishna. Hare, very simple one. It's not very complicated. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. One word or one line or one mantra, whatever, one at a time. Krishna Haribol, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai. Thank you all very, very much. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Bo! Hari Bo!
Bol.
Hari Bo!
Hare Krishna,
Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bo!
Hari Bol.
Hari Bo!
Hari Bol.
Hari Bo! Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Premanandi Hari Hari
Hari
Bo!
Bol.
Hari. Jai Prabhupada, Hari Bo.